Want to get cheat sheets, audiobooks, lessons, apps, and much more every month for free? Just click the link in the description to get your free language gifts of the month.
Welcome to PolishPod101.com's Polski w 3 minuty. The fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Polish. Cześć, jestem Joanna. Miło Cię poznać. Hi, I'm Joanna. Nice to meet you. In this series, we're going to learn basic Polish expressions. It's super easy and it only takes 3 minutes. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to introduce yourself in Polish. We'll start speaking right away. But first, it's important to clarify that in Polish often there is a difference between formal and informal language. Let's first see how Polish people introduce themselves in an informal situation. Cześć, jestem Joanna. Hi, I'm Joanna. Cześć, jestem Joanna. Miło mi Cię poznać means nice to meet you, but Polish people don't really use this phrase. In informal situations, it's better if you just say miło mi. Start by saying cześć, jestem, then say your name. Cześć, jestem Joanna. Finally, if you want, say miło mi. Cześć, jestem Joanna. Miło mi. And now let's see the same sentence in formal speech. Dzień dobry, nazywam się Joanna Suchecka. Miło mi Pana poznać. Good day, my name is Joanna Suchecka. Nice to meet you. Dzień dobry, nazywam się Joanna Suchecka. Miło mi Pana poznać. This is what you say if you're talking to a man. If you're talking to a woman, say dzień dobry, nazywam się Joanna Suchecka. Miło mi Panią poznać. Dzień dobry, nazywam się Joanna Suchecka. Miło mi Panią poznać. So what has changed from the previous introduction? Let's take a close look at these expressions together. Cześć has been substituted with the formal greeting dzień dobry, Polish for good day or good morning. Jestem Joanna also changed. Jestem simply means I am. However, during a formal self-introduction, you should avoid saying this. It's better to say nazywam się Joanna Suchecka, which means my name is Joanna Suchecka. Also, in formal situations, please remember to say your full name. Finally, pay attention to the ending. We went from miło Cię poznać to miło mi Pana or Panią poznać. We changed Cię into Pana or Panią. If you use Cię, you're addressing someone around your age. But if you find yourself in a formal situation or talk to a person who's older than you, use Pana to address a man or Panią to address a woman. One more time. The informal way to introduce yourself in Polish is cześć. Jestem Joanna. Miło mi. The formal way to introduce yourself is dzień dobry. Nazywam się Joanna Suchecka. Miło mi Pana poznać. Or dzień dobry. Nazywam się Joanna Suchecka. Miło mi Panią poznać. Now it's time for Joanna's insights. If you feel confused about the nice to meet you part, feel free to skip it. As I mentioned before, Polish people don't use it much. When you introduce yourself, it's a good habit to shake hands. It doesn't matter whether you're meeting a man or a woman. Do the handshake. Remember to make it quite firm. If your hand is too loose, it gives the other person a bad impression. We also say it feels like holding a dead fish. That's it for this lesson. In the last lesson, we learned how to introduce ourselves in Polish. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use good manners as we thank people. Gotowi? Are you ready? Let's start. There are 2 ways to thank someone. Let's start with the easiest one. It's just one word. Dziękuję. Dziękuję. Dziękuję means thank you. When saying thank you very much, you just need to add bardzo. Dziękuję bardzo. If we want to thank a friend, usually we use a different, more casual word. Dzięki. Dzięki. Dzięki is very similar to the English thanks. So you shouldn't use it when your friend did something especially nice for you or when the situation is serious. We usually use it to thank for small favors. For example, if a friend bought a drink for us, lent us a pen, helped us carry our bags, and so on. How do you answer? It's easy. Here are two different ways to do it. The first is nie ma za co. Nie ma za co. This means you're welcome. Nie ma za co can be used with anybody, except in a very formal situation. In such cases, it's better to use this expression. Przyjemność po mojej stronie. Przyjemność po mojej stronie. Literally, this phrase means pleasure is on my side. It's not a very common thing to say among young people, or between friends and family members. But it will be considered very good manners if you answer with this expression in a formal situation, such as while talking to your boss or speaking to someone much older than you. You can also simply say it to someone you don't know very well. So when someone says dziękuję to you, you can reply with nie ma za co or przyjemność po mojej stronie. If you hear dzięki, it might be a bit too much to respond to this casual phrase by saying nie ma za co or przyjemność po mojej stronie. So how might you react then? You have two options. First one is just to say nothing. Don't worry, it's a normal thing to do. The second option is to say spoko. Spoko. This means something like it's cool. If you want, you can also answer using this phrase. Nie ma problemu. Nie ma problemu. This means it's no problem. Now it's time for Joanna's insights. If you want to keep it simple, just use dziękuję or dziękuję bardzo when you want to thank someone. It doesn't matter whether the situation is formal or informal. It's always the same. Remember not to say przyjemność po mojej stronie to your friends, because it will sound a little bit weird. If someone thanks you saying dzięki, just answer spoko. But please note that these two words are very casual. In the last lesson, we learned how to thank people by saying dziękuję. In this lesson, we will learn some of the most common greetings used in Poland. Gotowi? Are you ready? Zaczynamy. Let's start. There are a few informal greetings in Polish. Cześć. Cześć. Cześć means hi or hello. Another informal greeting is siema. Siema. This phrase also means hi, but it's used only by young people. Another very common greeting is hey. 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 Hey is very easy because it's exactly the same as English hey. All these greetings are very informal, and we should only use them with friends or close relatives. Now let's move on to formal greetings in Polish. There are only two that you need to know. We'll start with dzień dobry. Dzień dobry. Literally, dzień dobry means good day. We can use dzień dobry during the whole day, from early morning until evening. If it's the evening, we would say dobry wieczór. Dobry wieczór. What should you say when you leave? Polish people usually say do widzenia when living in a formal situation. Do widzenia. Do widzenia means goodbye. If, however, we are saying goodbye to friends or relatives, we can use the informal papa. Pa. Or simply pa. Now you can greet people and say goodbye in many different ways in Polish. Let's review them all again. First, formal greetings. Dzień dobry. Use this phrase during the day. Dobry wieczór. Use this phrase in the evening. The informal greetings are cześć, siema, hej. When living in a formal situation, we say do widzenia. And in an informal situation, it's papa or just pa. Easy, isn't it? Now it's time for Joanna's insights. Do you remember siema? It's an abbreviation of jak się masz, which means how are you? But we just use it in the same way as hi. It's a very common greeting among young people. You will find, as you continue to study Polish, that new greetings constantly appear among young people who often come up with new uses for well-known phrases or their abbreviations. In the last lesson, we learned the most common forms of greetings in Poland. Do you remember them? In this lesson, we're going to learn a very useful phrase. Do you speak English? If you find yourself in a situation where you need assistance in English, this phrase can be a lifesaver. And because you're asking it in Polish, you can be sure that everyone will understand what you are saying, even if their answer is no. Here's an informal way to say it. Czy mówisz po angielsku? Czy mówisz po angielsku? Czy is a particle which has no meaning. It's similar to the English do. In Polish, verbs change depending on the pronoun that is used. Since you can understand what the pronoun is by looking at the verb conjugation, we usually skip the pronoun itself. That's why there's no pronoun after czy. Next, we've got the verb mówisz, which means speak. Then there's po, which we always have to put right before a language name. And finally, angielsku, which means English. We're now going to make this sentence formal. First of all, we have to change mówisz into mówi, because the pronoun is changed from you into a respectful pronoun meaning sir or ma'am. Then we add pan, which means sir, or pani, which means ma'am. Everything else stays the same. Czy mówi pan po angielsku? Czy mówi pani po angielsku? Czy mówi pan po angielsku? Czy mówi pani po angielsku? Adding przepraszam, excuse me, makes the sentence more polite. Przepraszam, czy mówi pan po angielsku? Przepraszam, czy mówi pani po angielsku? The response you will receive could be one of these four. Tak, yes, tak. Trochę, a little, trochę. Nie, no. Nie. Nie, nie mówię po angielsku. No, I don't speak English. Nie. Nie mówię po angielsku. Since the last one is a negative statement, we need to say nie before the verb mówię. Notice also that the verb is slightly different than before. Remember, the verb changes depending on the pronoun used. We are now talking about ourselves, so the sentence is nie mówię po angielsku. Now it's time for Joanna's insights. For those of you who are not only English speakers, you can obviously use this question with any language you need. Polish people study other European languages at school, so maybe you will get lucky. Just substitute po angielsku with po niemiecku for German, po rosyjsku for Russian, po włosku for Italian, po hiszpańsku for Spanish, po francusku for French. Today we mentioned the expression przepraszam, but did you know that this could also be used as an apology? In the next lesson, we will learn this and other ways to apologize in Polish. It's never too late to show your good manners with Polish people.
Want to get cheat sheets, audiobooks, lessons, apps, and much more every month for free? Just click the link in the description to get your free language gifts of the month.
In the last lesson, we learned the phrase przepraszam. Czy mówisz po angielsku? Excuse me, do you speak English? We mentioned the word przepraszam, which means excuse me. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to apologize in Polish. It's very easy. First of all, good news. We don't differentiate between I'm sorry and excuse me. In Polish, we have just one word, przepraszam, which can be used in both situations when we want to apologize or draw someone's attention. There's also no difference between formal and informal situations. It's always the same przepraszam. Let's go through some situations in which przepraszam can be used. If you want to draw someone's attention, just put przepraszam in front of the question. For example, przepraszam, czy to miejsce jest wolne? Excuse me, is this seat occupied? Or przepraszam, jak dojść do dworca? Excuse me, how can I get to the train station? In such a case, you can modify the question by adding panią if you're addressing a lady, or pana if you're addressing a man. For example, przepraszam panią, jak dojść do dworca? Excuse me, ma'am, how can I get to the train station? The meaning is exactly the same as before. We just emphasize the gender of a person who we talk to. You can choose whatever version you like better. Both are correct and polite. The other situation in which we use przepraszam is when we apologize. As I mentioned before, we have only this one word for making an apology. We can use it both in formal and informal situations. If you want to make your apology more complex, you could use this phrase. Jestem ci winien przeprosiny. Jestem ci winien przeprosiny. Please note that this is spoken by a man. Woman would say, jestem ci winna przeprosiny. Jestem ci winna przeprosiny. This phrase means I owe you an apology. Usually, after saying this, you are expected to explain what you did wrong or the reason why you think you owe someone an apology. There's one colloquial word used to apologize among young people. It's almost the same as the English sorry. We say sorry. Sorry. It's okay to say it to your friends, but only in the case of a small mistake, something not very serious. For example, when you step on your friend's foot or when you want to refuse going out. Now it's time for Joanna's insights. Making an apology in Polish is very easy. It's enough to just say przepraszam. Here, you don't have to worry about speaking formally or informally, or the age and gender of the person you are talking to. In the last lesson, we learned some words used when apologizing in Polish. In this lesson, we are going to learn numbers in Polish, from 1 to 10. And you are going to learn them in only 3 minutes. 3 minuty. Let's start. 1. 1. 2. 2. 3. 3. 4. 4. 5. 5. 6. 6. 7. 7. 8. 8. 9. 9. 10. 10. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Great job! What is before 1? Do you know? It's the same as in English, but with a different pronunciation. 0. 0. Now you don't have any more excuses. You can give your friends your phone number in Polish. Let's try together. We will use the phrase mój numer to, which means my number is. Mój numer to. Mój numer to 602 849 020. Can you read it by yourself? 602 849 020. Perfect. Now it's time for Joanna's insights. In Poland, we use numbers the most often when we go shopping, especially when we ask about prices, which you will also learn soon. We also buy many things per kilogram. All vegetables and many fruits are not sold individually, but per kilogram. Also cheese, meat, and sausages. So if you go to a grocery store or supermarket, you would ask the clerk for example, 1 kilogram of minced meat, 500 grams of cheese, or 2 kilograms of onions. In the last lesson, we learned the numbers from 1 to 10. Do you remember? Let's practice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great job! And now let's continue from 11. 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19. And finally we have 20. 20. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. These numbers may seem harder to remember, but you really just have to memorize 14, 15, 16, and 19. The rest of them are just compounds of a digit and naście, like 13, 17. Easy, isn't it? Let's not stop at 20. Counting to 100 is super easy. Now I'll give you the tens. 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, 50, 60, 60, 70, 70, 80, 80, 90, 90, 100, 100. The first three tens may be a little bit tricky because their endings are different from other tens. Let's take a closer look. 20 is made from 2 and 10. 30 is 3 and 10. And finally 40 is 4 and 10. Please note that we cut off the last letter of 4, which means 4. Then, starting from 50, it gets much easier, because we just take the digit and add the ending dziesiąt. Let's try together. 5 and dziesiąt is 50. 6 and dziesiąt is 60. 7 and dziesiąt is 70. 8 and dziesiąt is 80. And finally, 9 and dziesiąt is 90. The last thing to learn today is how to form compound numbers above 20. This is also super easy. Take the tens and simply add the numbers you learned in the previous lesson. Let's try it out. How would you say 56 in Polish? Let's take it step by step. 50 is 50. And then add 6, 6. 56. Isn't that easy? Let's make another number, for instance, 98. Take 90, 90, and add 8, 8. 98. After only 2 lessons, you are now able to count to 100 in Polish. In the next lesson, we are going to put your number knowledge to use. Do you have all the skills you need to go shopping in Poland? If not, I'll be waiting for you in our next Polski w 3 minuty lesson. In the last lesson, we learned how to count in Polish. I hope you spent some time practicing the numbers, because they will come in handy today. We're going to learn how to go shopping in Poland. Before we go, you need to know how to say how much is it? Ile to kosztuje? Ile to kosztuje? Are you ready to go shopping in Poland? Let's go! You see something you like and want to ask the shop clerk how much it costs. The first thing to say is przepraszam. Do you remember what that means? Excuse me. Przepraszam, ile to kosztuje? Przepraszam, ile to kosztuje? If we want to be more specific when asking how much is it and refer to a certain type of object, we first need to know if the object is a feminine or masculine object. If it's masculine, add ten when referring to it, and ta for a feminine object, and then say the noun. For example, a watch is masculine. Zegarek. Przepraszam, ile kosztuje ten zegarek? Excuse me, how much is this watch? Przepraszam, ile kosztuje ten zegarek? And skirt is a feminine noun. Spódnica. Przepraszam, ile kosztuje ta spódnica? Excuse me, how much is this skirt? Przepraszam, ile kosztuje ta spódnica? And finally, if we ask about the price of a few similar items, like these t-shirts, these apples, these toys, we have to add te before the noun. For example, przepraszam, ile kosztują te jabłka? Excuse me, how much are these apples? Przepraszam, ile kosztują te jabłka? At this point, the shop clerk will usually answer by saying just the price of an item. For example, 15 złotych, 100 złotych, or 24,50. What number is 15? Do you remember? Of course, it's 15. Now it's time for Joanna's insights. A quicker and more commonly used phrase is po ile, which literally means how much. Then we just add the name of an item we want to know the price of. For example, po ile te jabłka? Or po ile ten zegarek? Or you can just say po ile and point to the item. Both ways are perfectly fine. At this point, can you count złoty in Polish? We are going to learn how to do this and much more in the next lesson. I'll be waiting for you in our next Polski w 3 minuty lesson. Do zobaczyska!